From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined, as always, with our super producer, Dylan the Tennessee Pal Fagan. Most importantly, you are you. You are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. Previously on Stuff They Don't Want You to Know, we dove deep into one of history's enduring mysteries, the idea of something called the Anunnaki. What did we walk away with in chapter 1 of that exploration?
Well, we came away with a lot of the myths that were surrounding this part of the world at a very specific time, and we were talking far, far, far BCE. Do we have a time frame for when the Anunnaki Sumerian gods were roaming around?
Yeah, it was like before numbers were a concept.
Yes, exactly. Precisely. A long time ago, where these kinds of stories were, originally told, right? And that's how a lot of these stories go. And then, as we've said before about all these kinds of myths and ancient concepts, a lot of it is passed down orally before it becomes finally written down and maybe finds its way into a great tale of some sort, like an epic, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yes, a narrative, a myth, a shared story. We mentioned a lot of this in our first chapter of our exploration of the Anunnaki. And look, if we're going to be honest, folks, the Anunnaki went through a lot of what studio execs these days would call rebranding. Right? Yep. The Sumerian civilization had one pitch. The Akkadian civilization had another. The Assyrians walked up and said, you guys are wrong. Here's our thing.
Yeah. Is it Enki? Is it Marduk? What is it? Who is it? Where is it? And why?
Yeah. And this pattern is not stopped in the modern day. Honestly, we could argue that older civilizations' tremendous habit of constantly retconning exactly what the Anunnaki are and how they interact with mortals created the modern opportunities for rethinking the Anunnaki today. Cough, cough, aliens, cough, cough. This was such a ride, the first one, because we explored the relatively sparse proven historical references to Anunnaki earlier. And then, as we recall, we ended by asking, what the heck were or are these things in the first place? Are they angels? Are they demons? Shout out Dan Brown. Are they gods? Are they monsters, teachers, tormentors? Something
all
in
of the above.
None
of
the
above.
All we know for sure is that they're 9 feet tall. Or something like that.
Are they Star Wars canon? Unclear. Sorry, I can't get off that. The Anunnaki, just maybe I'm thinking Anakin, but it just sounds very Star Wars coded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what we're going to see in chapter 2 here of this series is the answer to all of those questions, including the George Lucas mythology there, Noel. Kind of depends on where you stand, which civilization you place the most trust in, and who you're listening to. So here's where it gets crazy. Maybe we start with the divinity stuff. We talked about Mesopotamia a little bit, geographical region, Southwest Asia. Most of us in the West are going to call this roughly the Middle East, which is kind of do you guys ever think about that name? The Middle East is kind of misleading, I think.
I mean, I've never understood that, nor have I understood Middle Earth. So, yeah.
Well, I guess, okay, so Far East, if you're going to say that phrase, you'd be talking about everything from Japan and then moving westward towards where we would say the middle is, I suppose. Of like Europe would be then on the west. That's the West East.
I
don't
guess, we're still in this modern civilization. We still suffer from Greenwich Mean Time, right? Like,
Wait, yeah.
yeah.
No, but so theoretically,
Mhm.
we've talked about the origin of the term the West when we talk about Western countries in the West. That is more European, like Western European countries
Sure.
and that stuff.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, I don't even like thinking about this, but it is.
The world is round, though. That's
I
the
know.
craest part.
Well, yeah. I mean, the
Like-
idea of Western culture is also so heavily biased and kind of weighted in the favor of it's like the better part of the world, the smart people.
Literally, nobody in ancient civilizations in Asia, in Eastern Asia, there we go again,
Hey.
none of them ever said, "Oh, the far West."
Yeah,
You know what I
but
mean?
it does make sense a little bit when we're talking about this area between the two rivers, Tigris and Euphrates.
Yeah.
And this area, if you imagine originating in this area, or where the Anunnaki myths come from, if you head west, that is the western area, and if you head east, that is the eastern area. So I don't know, maybe it is. It does make sense if this is where we centralize our location.
Yeah, no one walked far enough. Guys, get out there, just exercise, take a stroll.
Just walk
see
the
where
earth.
See where the path leads you.
Like Caine from Kung Fu.
The legend continues. The term we're using for Mesopotamia, just as a quick example here, folks, that is not a term that those civilizations created. It came from the much later Greek civilization, even before they got ripped off by the Romans. Mesopotamia is literally like the Greek word or portmanteau for between rivers. As you were saying, Matt, the Tigris and the Euphrates. So the great Greek minds, which we don't want to disrespect too much just yet. That'll be a different episode.
It's coming.
It's on the way.
We're going to throw some serious shade at the great minds of ancient Greece. Yes.
Do you think they had ferns on either side?
Are you asking if they were between two ferns?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I'm asking.
I understand. I see where you're coming from.
Yeah. I mean, Paul Rudd was there from day one, right? Original Anunnaki, that guy.
But where was Paul Bunyan, and how does he figure into this mythology?
That's a great question. Came around a little bit later due to occult research into the Lesser Key of Solomon.
His
Or
ox was a real babe.
Solopol, as it's pronounced.
Right. That's right.
Y'all, we're throwing down some big Friday energy here,
Yes.
but why don't we jump back into the Anunnaki, shall we? Yeah.
And we've returned. We'll do it one more time. Here's where it gets crazy. The actions of these earlier civilizations in Mesopotamia, they informed a ton of later civilizations. Pretty much all of the Middle East, pretty much all of the Indus Valley, also, therefore, North Africa, Egypt, the Mediterranean. Eventually, the gods and demons and myths and folklore of these areas between the Tigris and the Euphrates informed every human civilization that was not separated by vast abyssal oceans.
Well, that's a really good point. So as other civilizations come through, as battles are fought and wars are won and that kind of thing, these gods end up morphing a little bit, but the essence of them sticks around for quite a while.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I like that because that means that depending on how you felt about a civilization that you learned from, especially when literacy is a relatively small demographic of a human population, you're still inheriting the seeds, princely perhaps, or the DNA of these stories. Yeah, the Anunnaki may be good, they might be bad. They're upper middle management of heaven or the netherworld. They're demons, they're angels, they might be a third thing somewhere between demonic and divine, not quite human, not quite mundane, not quite quintessence. It's like the pre-Islamic myths that informed, no offense, folks, the belief in jinn.
The smokeless fire beings.
That's
cool.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'm not. Yeah, no, it's interesting. And didn't you EP a real cool podcast about jinn? Was it called Hidden Jinn? Something like that, Matt?
Yes, it was. It's
Check it out.
Aaron Mahnke's Grim and Mild slate. Very good.
Please do. I think we all found that impressive because in Islamic spiritual belief, the jinn are a third thing wrought by God as a smokeless fire, right? The green fire without smoke, which created a new thing that was very much similar to man with certain superpowers, if we're going to be Marvel or DC about it. Back before the people of the book, back before Judaism, Christianity, Islam, at the time these myths and cosmologies are created in Mesopotamia, conspiracy theories and scientific method as concepts, they're not really a thing. Religion, science, politics, they are inseparable. They're all the one thing based on the very small amount of the population that is capable of literacy.
Yep. And as we know, all these Anunnaki end up representing different things, the way a lot of civilizations that go with the many gods structure end up having, right? Where there is a god of water, but there's also another god that's really specific about irrigation. And I'm just giving that as an example, but that goes across the board here. And depending on what you're doing in your town, what your town specializes in, your town may be a very specific Anunnaki god town that worships specifically that god. And then you just go a little ways down, right? And you got another town that is I don't know, what would they be making there?
They would probably be making things out of metal. So they would worship someone who creates stuff from metal or ore versus a fisher god.
Some sort of widget god. Yeah, I got it.
Definitely. Well, the other thing is, often, it's so weird with humans. Town by town, sometimes we just don't get along, and we want things, and we get real territorial and greedy about stuff. We often do that for some reason. In the cases with these Anunnaki, you would have towns that would literally be engaged in the unpleasantness with each other, and you would basically have God versus God in a representational format with actual fights and stuff.
I love this. You're so good at this. Yes, because you could go to one town that absolutely adored a particular Anunnaki, right? Statues for days in this one town. And then you go across the valley or down the Euphrates or the Tigris, and there's another town that, beat me here, Dylan, and hates that Anunnaki in particular. They don't just not respect it. They're angry about it existing. You could see people arguing about it, but it would be a lot less like how you tune into international news today and you see pundits doing what was that one show that used to be on, Crossfire?
Yeah.
Until Jon Stewart absolutely waxed everybody.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, let's keep in mind, because the myths surrounding a lot of these gods, they're doing creepy, messed up things to each other, to humans. You can imagine, if you're a big fan of one of these gods, you're almost like taking the side in a reality TV show. That person,
100%.
That's the right person. They were in the right, but they were equally pretty wrong too. But you got to choose sides.
Yeah, but what is our guy? Say the people.
Exactly. And speaking of the people, this reminds me of the conflicts between Japanese god deities, the yokai, and this idea of like yokai wars. So there's actually a Takashi Miike film called The Great Yokai War, and apparently that comes from a manga and also then from mythology. So there, back to the whole parallel thinking, religious syncretism aspect of all of this stuff.
I don't know anything about that. That sounds really interesting. Can you say the name of it one more time?
Ben might be able to speak to it a little more, but yokai are these Japanese supernatural beings that are somewhat godlike. And then the film is called The Great Yokai War, which is actually kind of a children's movie by a really gnarly Japanese director named Takashi Miike, who's much more known for his ultra-violent films like Ichi the Killer and Audition.
Nice. We have to take a short break here because, Ben, you just chugged something awesome looking. I don't know what it was. I hope it's coffee. It looked like a teeny tiny little awesome coffee. Oh, nice.
Yeah, of course.
Nice.
What is it? Is that Suntory coffee?
It is not Suntory coffee. It is coffee. It is it is brought to you by our favorite co-host on Stuff They Don't Want You to Know and Ridiculous History, energy drinks, coffee, caffeinated. Oh, Matt's got a jar. Are you drinking coffee now?
I got coffee in a mason jar, baby.
Oh my guy. We shouted you out, Matt, recently on an episode of Ridiculous History about the ridiculous history of energy drinks.
Yeah, we referenced your ridiculous energy drink Fortitude. Gave you much respect.
So much creatine.
With great affection. Oh man, I hope you listen to it. Look, we're saying that there would be a common precedent that continues today and started in ancient civilizations. So these folks back then, right, who have chosen their patron saints or their favorite divine sports team, they're not having realistic, nuanced debates. It's a lot more like the leaders of one town saying, again, beat me here, Dylan, those other guys down this part of the Tigris, we said X, they said Y, and we want that arable land. So our God, just by the way, told us that land belongs to us. Let's go. And that's sort of the story of human history starting in the Middle East.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because you can now pit the beliefs of your followers or your town, your city versus the beliefs of the neighbors, right? Mm-hmm. And by
much like sports team rivalries, like no question about it.
Absolutely, or political ideologies, or anything. Think about the way we think about how money is exchanged and how economics work. You can pit those ideologies against each other and have a war that lasts for 100 years. Yeah,
the forever war. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, also, let's think of, with great respect and affection, our heavy metal snobs in the audience. Shout out to the Atlanta legend, Brent Hines, who unfortunately passed away.
Of Mastodon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big
phenomenal
big
guitarist for sure. Mastodon. So we want to put that in as Atlanta boys. The issue here is just like you're saying, there's this idea that discourse is unattainable, right? That these people must stand divided. And this is arguably where we see the first bad patterns emerge. We had a really interesting conversation in a recent I believe it was Listener Mail or Strange News program about how learning good habits is just as important as not learning bad habits. Matt, I'm specifically thinking of how you were talking about your kids learning karate, right? You got to learn good habits, right? Otherwise, you can set a precedent. I would argue here that we see human civilization learning bad habits that lead to the origin of things like the concept of being a heretic or the concept of blasphemy or all those other spiritual rationalizations for harming other people in real life, often innocent people.
Absolutely. So tying back into this concept of being able to control populations, one of the ways you do that is to control the information they have access to and the way they think about themselves specifically, which then, alters the way you maybe think about others. And this goes all the way like to the deepest beliefs, including gods and religion and that kind of thing. If you can at least influence heavily or mandate what people say and believe in public, then you can perhaps get them to wield a weapon, right? For you, the leader, who is also the spiritual, political, spiritual, everything leader.
Yeah. Oh, that's dangerous. Ooh, it's got some evil umami on it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and we just, it's kind of messed up because we pretend like it's something that just happened then,
Right.
Like, ooh, just look closely at some things. For a long time in this country, especially in the 80s, I would say like late 70s, 80s, that's when you really see it start to seep in this country, where religion and politics and economics and all this stuff really goes together to control what we're supposed to say and do in public.
Oh, you mean 1970s?
Yes.
1980s.
Yes.
Okay. My bad. But yes, agreed. Also 1780s. Also.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're in a pickle here. As we're talking about human civilizations, we know then, as you're saying, that it's, what's that line from Talking Heads? Same as it ever was.
Yes.
That's the one. Yeah.
Oh, you're
Once in a
absolutely
lifetime.
right. Because with that control, Ben, I think where you're going here is that you can put propaganda out into the world that then causes your enemies to get upset, right? You can make up rumors about some of the other gods that your town's not into.
Yeah, and it's like, Noel, you're referencing that sports analogy from earlier, right? The first conspiracies about Anunnaki follow this rough path of what they didn't call conspiracy theories. They didn't even call them alternative explanations. Instead, they said, those absolute, what's a fun, whimsical, archaic insult? Those jabronis, those ne'er-do-wells?
Old so-and-sos.
Those old so-and-sos, perfect, from down the Tigris. Well, it turns out that they're worshiping a thing that's not really a god. It's a demon before the word demon existed.
Oh my God.
Well, one person's God's another person's demon, depending on what side of the aisle you stand on.
Well, that's kind of the point, right?
Exactly.
Because you can divide everybody. Again, these rumors get told, and then maybe somebody writes it down. And if you discover, well, I don't know, a clay tablet that has one of these rumors mentioned on it, and then and imagining modern humans discovering that from like 1200 BCE, and you're like, oh, well, obviously they thought this god was this. Like, no, unfortunately, that was just a rumor.
Right. We're maybe, as a civilization, we are maybe 5,000 years away from some future anthropologist discovering stuff about the New York Yankees and the New York Mets and calling them Anunnaki. That's what we need to remember, right? And
I look forward to that personally. So,
we're
in our lifetime.
We're going to get there. I think the podcasting is working out for all of us. So direct agents of damnation, that's what you would call the other folks, the great them. And anyone who adored or agreed with them was kind of Tupac Shakur rules. If you ride with them, you too. No one needed proof. And at this point, we should also, while we're talking about proof, we should acknowledge there was no what the modern world would consider real phenomenological proof that things like the Anunnaki ever actually existed. Instead, people worshiping it would worship a carving, a statue, an idol, a physical representation. And to them at that time, there was no symbolism. It wasn't like an ancestral shrine or something. It was us being in the presence of that God. When we encounter that carving, we get the tingly, goosebumpy knee that we described earlier. You shiver in the presence. because when you see that carven idol, that is the god. That is the Anunnaki.
In the same way the bread is the body, right?
Just so. Yes. Yeah. It's similar to, like, lest we sound as though we are casting stones or aspersion on these earlier human civilizations. We have to remember this literalism continues in a very real way for millennia. The Christian literalism occurs in early American colonies. There's not a separation between literal truth and symbolism. I think we all remember that infamous sermon, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. You know, Bangor, 1741. This guy named Jonathan Edwards is spitting hot fire to his congregation out there in what we call Connecticut today. And while he's delivering this sermon, which is very mean, by the way, it's a very, like, you are in trouble kind of sermon. While he's spitting this hellfire and brimstone, a snake goes into the physical room, the structure where the parishioners are gathered. And then our buddy, old Pastor Edwards, sees the snake while he's being all, holy hands, Pentecostal, yelling at people. He sees the snake mid-speech. He runs over and he stamps on the snake. And for the people in the crowd, this is not symbolism. The snake isn't there by accident. It is the genuine devil. Our buddy Edwards is therefore the actual servant of God, and he is stamping out an actual infernal threat. That's how it works.
Out there doing God's work.
Shout out to Northampton, Mass. Anybody listening to this in Massachusetts? You got this.
You got this one's for you. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, find them snakes, stamp them out. Let's go.
Some God-fearing, snake-stamping folks out there in Hampton, Mass. That's what I heard.
Mm-hmm. That's what we always say. And this is brought to you by the tourism board of that grand city. So this literalism, we were a bit discursive there, but the literalism was just as common in ancient Mesopotamia. What we're saying is metaphor wasn't really a thing. Truth, as you or the authorities of your day portrayed it, it was absolute. There was no middle ground. You couldn't really sit down and have a chat.
Yeah, either it was or it was not. And if it was not, then we are all wrong, right? And if we are all wrong, what the hell are we doing here, guys? So we can't be wrong, or else we can't progress in some weird way. Because again, the ways of thinking, as you described earlier, Ben, of having a hypothesis, testing the hypothesis, figuring out what is actually real. It's not around quite yet. And you have to think about, that's a mode of thinking. That's not like it's an invention or a technology in a lot of ways. It's not there.
Yeah. And there's not really any opportunity for the people from, one town by the river and another town up or down the river to sit and just chop it up. You know what I mean? They're not having a nice meal and chatting about nuanced opinions of religion. Almost no one without violence changed their minds about metaphysical concepts. Very few people also asked for what we would consider concrete proof. It's part of the reason folks destroy statues in the modern day. I'm looking at you, Afghanistan. So there's a vibe, and it didn't help that so many subsequent religions kept cribbing notes off each other. And despite the fact that these civilizations often hated one another, they kept stealing from one another, right? They cribbed the same stories and told them over and over again, Joseph Campbell style, and just put their own spin on it, which takes us to one of our favorite examples, I think, the story of the flood.
Yeah, the story of the flood. You've heard that. Zasudra. Oh, wait, Noah. Yeah.
That's the one.
I mean,
Your mileage
your
may
team.
vary. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I guess, we should start with our maybe earliest point of reference, Matt, which would, I think, be Noah. Most folks in the Western, there it is again, world are definitely likely familiar with the broad strokes of the story. The version that we're talking about here, Noah and the flood, would be considered an Abrahamic interpretation of the flood myth. In this story, Noah, who is a very sharp, godly fellow, follows the commandments of the Lord, and unfortunately is living during a time where other people are not following his good example. And God is not pleased about the state of pretty much everyone on the earth. But he looks at Noah as being a good boy and bestows upon him a grand responsibility.
Yeah, he goes to Noah. Hashem goes to Noah and says, look, I'm going to do what studio execs in 2025 are going to call a hard reboot. And Noah is like, what is 2025? And he's like, it's a different calendar. Don't worry about it. I need you to build a big ass boat. And Noah goes, all right, you're God, so I kind of have to go along with this. And God says, we can only imagine. Tight. Here are some very specific instructions about a very big boat.
Yep, and to your point, Ben, God does not necessarily supply any assistance with the labor. There's no levitation going on, anything like that. He does have to build it by hand with his family. God does, however, supply some pretty specific instructions for the construction of this massive boat. I don't know if that includes blueprints or if they just expected him to know how to get it done. But it is important that they bring aboard breeding pairs of all of the animals, all of them. Always, this is where you start seeing the stuff of myth. Don't think we can fit them all on an ark, no matter the size. The flood comes, God's great retribution, his great reset on the sin-riddled world, and everyone dies except Noah and his fam and all the animals who ride out the flood in the boat, make it to dry land, and the waters then recede. God sends a magical rainbow as a bit of an attaboy, and it is up to Noah and all of this livestock and his family to reseed civilization as we know it.
Mm-hmm. And before we continue, we do want to give a shout out to an excellent, a phenomenal graphic novel series called Dark Ark by the awesome writer Cullen Bunn, which is all about an alternate ark not approved by God, by the unnameable. It's the one
a rival ark?
Yeah, rival ark. It's a cool story. No spoilers.
No, I'll check it out.
Yeah, please do. I can just toss them to you next time we hang out.
Sounds good.
The idea, as you described it, Noel, is perfect. You're absolutely right. They ride out the flood. It's part of the reason in the West, even today, people say olive branch as an offering of peace, because Noah sends out a bird, and a bird comes back and shows you there's dry land, which is obviously the precedent for amazing masterpieces like Waterworld or Police Academy 5.
Oh, 100%, which are both they actually exist within the same extended universe, Waterworld and Police Academy 5. Very few people know that.
Keep my tittering in.
It is a fun thing to consider. How would that crossover work? Let us know.
There's a lot more to the flood story, but these are the basics, right? This is the IKEA instruction manual for this story. The big twist here is that the story of Noah, as we understand it today, is only one of many versions of this tale. And it's not the first. Multiple other versions far predate Noah, with the first being found in, you guessed it, folks, Sumerian text.
Oh, yeah. So if you imagine the Noah version, God is making the decision to flood the entire planet for reason X, for reasons. Gonna flood the whole planet, kill everything. But in that tale, the only way Noah finds out about the flood is because God told him. It's a little, I mean, it's like, whoa, what are you doing here, man? Okay, you just want a great reset, a real great reset. That's what you're doing. But if you go back to the story of Zasudra, who is another person who just happens to gain the favor of one of the gods, not God, but one of the gods, in this case, Enki, E-N-K-I. It's, if you look at the Akkadian versions, it's a lot like Greek and Roman. So one version is going to be Enki. The other version in Akkadian is going to be Ea, E-A. And as you go through some of these myths, you'll find that is very troublingly confusing at first, at least, where you're like, wait, I thought that was that god, or it was this god. But in this case, all the gods got together and decided as a group, as a committee, that they were going to flood the entire planet because humans, not great. Let's try this again. And Enki, one of the gods, I want to say he's the god of wind and maybe atmosphere or something like that. He is the one that comes down to Zasudra and says, hey, turn that house thing you've got into a boat. Then you got to get animals, breeding pairs of animals, get them on that boat because this place is getting flooded.
Yeah, he's like, hey, man, you were always cool to me earlier. Don't be at school tomorrow. And, that's evil in terms of the reference, but it is accurate. Zasudra is the last king of Sumer before the Great Flood, per the Akkadian myth. And Zasudra has all the beats, just like you're describing there, all the beats of the Noah story that comes way after, by the way. And Zasudra, one of the differences is Zasudra is polytheistic.
Yes.
So Zasudra has to ask multiple gods to save him and his ark. And those gods, as far as history knows, are Anunnaki.
Yes.
We brought it back. We did it. It's still an
true.
Anunnaki episode.
On and Enlil, and then, well, obviously Enki. These are the Anunnaki. So this flood story goes back real far. And it's kind of the same story. When you look at it, it is play by play the same dang thing.
I think a flood happened.
For sure.
I think multiple floods occurred because, there's another myth like this in Indus civilization, another myth in ancient Chinese civilization, another myth in South American, Mesoamerican civilization. Mm-hmm. Mesoamerican, especially of interest, as there is no clear way, provable way that these civilizations could have communicated with one another.
Well, yeah, and remember, when we're talking about very specific places where all of this information comes from, a great flood could just be a regional flood, but a large regional flood, right? Mm-hmm. So there could be large regional floods, and then this is kind of the story that floats around. We don't know. There could be one where the ice caps melted for a while. We don't know exactly, but the scientists, as they're going through, aren't finding proof of that real thing. But that is why we get this. What are the terms? Antediluvian?
Yes, before the flood.
Okay, and then diluvian. No, is it that? I don't know.
If only it were that simple.
Yeah. No, nailed it. Antediluvian. We also need to flood this feed with an ad break. And we have returned. Really appreciate your mention of religious syncretism, Noel. It's a concept we see over and over again. We can argue effectively that the move toward monotheism by what we call the people of the book is kind of an exercise in consolidation. So many stories of a singular God from Judaism, Christianity, Islam, these stories have their narrative roots in previously uncollected, distinct tales that were previously assigned to individual Anunnaki. And it's crazy that we have to think about it that way because that's why, I would argue, that's why the Western world in particular is chock full of bizarre recent claims linking the Anunnaki to any number of supernatural analogs of our modern evenings. Just picture this. Here's a bitch. Guys, what if we did a show on the History Channel that was about aliens, but like ancient?
Oh, yes, I would watch that. And
What
I
a twist.
I did watch that. I watched the crap out of that. Because it's so compelling. Because humanity still doesn't know exactly how Homo sapiens arrived. We know there's little bits and pieces if you're going with evolutionary models. We know that there's some big jumps, especially if you're looking back at DNA, right? And DNA that we can actually test. And then Ancient Aliens comes along with some concepts that may provide answers. But proving those to be true is a whole other thing. They're fun ideas, but I mean, they're compelling ideas. They're ideas that will glue you to a television, at least in my case. But then you start looking a little bit deeper into each one individually, and you find, oh man, there are cracks in this clay tablet.
That was well done. Oh, man.
And they're starting to spread.
Yeah. Ancient Aliens, the newest twist, the hot new bop it in the game of figuring out civilization and history. It's the idea that all of human civilization was created, influenced, dare we say, bootstrapped by the intervention of some sort of pre-existing, more spiritually or technologically accomplished society, right? Usually seen as non-Homo sapiens. And genres of this belief are what we would call old beans. In the recent past, these beliefs were way more overtly racist. Like European explorers would stumble upon some ancient non-European marvel, like those old towers out in Western China or the pyramids or the Sphinx. And they would say, oh, folks even whiter than us must have been here first. For how could these non-white people have created such a thing?
Yeah.
Man, you went like 5 different directions with that accent. I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
While that is absolutely true, right? A lot of it is rooted in that stuff, and especially back then. There are things that are objectively puzzling when it comes to the historical record of things like tools and stuff that have been recovered from areas, right? So it is both what we're talking about here, this perhaps racist underpinning of some of these original concepts, but then also the puzzling nature of what's been found and proven to be there. So then you end up kind of weighing the things, but it does go back to that, and it's an unfortunate thing when you're watching that show and you're a big fan of it, and then you start to see like, gosh, I remember when we first had that revelation when we were making videos back in the day, like realizing just how rampant some of those beliefs were.
Yeah, and you're raising a great point about what we would call anachronistic artifacts, like the Antikythera mechanism, Baghdad battery, Damascus steel technology that was created and lost.
Yes, and specific structures, usually like carvings and the interiors of structures that are underground that are discovered with just perfectly cut stones, and just trying to imagine how one would do that with the tools available that we have, again, the tools we've recovered around that area that would lead anthropologists to believe that's what they used to cut that stone. But again, we don't know what we can't see or didn't recover. Does that make sense?
100%. It's like Noel, Matt, and Ben are working for Lord von Herringbone, Dylan Fagan, right? And we have to go over to Göbekli Tepe, and Lord von Herringbone, no offense, Dylan, is just yelling, "How?" Dylan, could you yell "how" real quick in like the fanciest accent?
How? Oh dear.
Well done, Dylan.
we're asking these questions, if we're Lord von Herringbone, we're saying, okay, from our civilization's perspective, this must have been built by an older race of humans who are not present now, or maybe lizard people, or maybe gods, or maybe folks harnessing the power of vril or whatever, VRIL, look it up. Have a great afternoon on that one. That's
if you're looking to get
Anunnaki.
in some Nazi territory.
Right. And in these stories, in von Herringbone and other stories, these jokers, right, these culprits, these Kaiser Soses of human civilization are responsible for literally all the beginning stuff: agriculture, the taming of fire, the wheel, writing, all the things that stood the test of time, the argument goes, were made by someone else, and all present civilization is simply sort of the remedial kids in the class.
Yeah, well, because a lot of that stuff came out of Mesopotamia, came out of this area where the Anunnaki, for a time reigned amongst the minds of the human beings. And it's pretty cool that we got that stuff from that area. Thanks, y'all, for putting in the hard work of, doing things like harnessing fire and inventing writing and cuneiform, or earlier cuneiform and all that stuff.
Well done.
Yeah, for real.
And folks, while we are pulling our long-suffering super producer von Herringbone onto the air, Baron von Herringbone, could you give us your understanding of the Nazca lines, just for an example?
I'm quite sure extraterrestrials created these lines.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well said.
I
Said
mean,
the Baron.
we have to agree with him. He's our employer.
Yeah, he's gonna fire us. So if we gotta stay the course. And folks, hold your wings, hold your ox-horned hats. We have so much more to get to about the Anunnaki. We have been teasing the extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional connection for a while now, and we can't wait for you to join us in the third part of this series, the Anunnaki. We're calling it A Future in the Sky.
That's right. In the meantime, find us on the internet at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook with our Facebook group, Here's Where It Gets Crazy, on X, FKA, Twitter, and on YouTube, where you can watch all the videos that your heart desires. On Instagram and TikTok, we're Conspiracy Stuff Show.
We have a phone number. It is 1-833-STDWYTK. Easy to remember. Turn those letters into numbers, then call it. When you call in, it's a voicemail system. You got 3 minutes. Give yourself a cool nickname and let us know within the message if we can use your name and message on the air. If you'd like to send us an email, we are
The entities that read each piece of correspondence we receive, be well aware yet unafraid. Sometimes the void writes back. Please give us a lead on an episode you think your fellow conspiracy realist will enjoy. Please ask us for a random fact because, oh, friends and neighbors, we have so many for you. All you have to do is walk a little further and join us out here in the dark. Conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.